Our guest this hour is from a small country. I'm just going off of what you were saying.
Thank you.
However, with big impact, right? And as we look at some, we've had conversations with the Estonian nation before, right from the presidency and to other experts in education. Today, we speak with the Estonian ambassador to Kenya, and Daniel Erik Schaer is the Estonian ambassador to Kenya, and he's our guest this hour. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to have you in the room, Balozi.
Thank you.
Welcome to Kenya's. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. You're in the hot seat of the Situation Room today, but we're looking at lessons that Kenya can actually learn from Estonia, and so we're very glad that you've joined us this morning. Even as we look at some of these things, we want to welcome you to the room and into this conversation in the true Situation Room style. What we do is that we take proverbs, CT takes proverbs from different African countries every week. And then when he gives us those proverbs, we ask you to listen to it, tell us what you think and how you would interpret it. Can we give you that assignment this morning?
Absolutely, let's do it.
Fantastic.
Okay. Hot water does not burn the house. That is a proverb from the Republic of Côte d'Ivoire, formerly known as the Ivory Coast.
Very impressive. Hot water does not burn the house.
Yes.
That's you've really got a tough one for me, but I'm guessing that the hot water isn't prepared in the house. So I mean, there's no way of burning the house because the fire should be somewhere else, or in the modern day it's piped in. So I'm guessing that that it's maybe something linked to that. We're in different areas. You do different things.
We actually want your interpretation. What you're doing is trying to figure out what I want you to say. Erase that one. Let's start again. What do you think this proverb means?
Well, for us, hot water is important, and for Estonia, it's the sauna. So the hot water came where we used to clean ourselves. It was the area where you would make the hot water yourself because it came from the heat of the sauna, and that's where we purified ourselves, where we warmed ourselves. So we definitely did not burn our house, the sauna, with the hot water.
There we go. There we go.
Give us interpretation. It's always something new and refreshing, and we could never have thought of it.
True.
Yes. Thank you.
Fantastic place to start. So Balozi, good to have you here, like we said.
Thank you.
And even as we go into these conversations about key lessons that Kenya can learn and the, passage of information from one country to the next and lessons from one country to the other in this relationship.
Yes.
Start us off with, your journey into Kenya, how you since you've been here, what are some of the things that you on a personal level in your ambassadorship have been able to garner so far? A little bit of your journey.
Well, I've been to Kenya even before this period. I was here for the elections in 2007 as an observer for the EU. I was in Kericho in the beautiful tea area and experienced a very hot election period. And I guess that really gave me the understanding of also the country, because we know that Kenya on the business side, is really the leader in the region, and a lot of the capital, the big HQs of the companies are here, and really the M-Pesa story and all of these things, and then once in a while things heat up a little bit because I mean I think that's when things go too smoothly all the time, then it's a little bit of a reminder, a check. Let's see what's going on. So already at that time I was able to get that picture, and I think the dynamics of this country is in its people and the diversity, the different groups of people, and I think that's what I've really taken from my time here, is also the fact that the media freedom component, that you're able to speak. I've been to now 37 countries on the continent, so I know the different situations in different countries, and I think that the the opportunities here in Kenya is exactly why we are here. So, I mean, it's not only the diplomatic relations, but it's also the business relations. Our companies are interested. They see the youth and the potential in terms of startups. Last year, we have a startup conference called Latitude 59 in Estonia that had about 3,000 participants this year. And last year, we had the first one in Africa, and it was in Kenya. And it's for a reason, because we see the dynamism of the youth and the interest of doing some innovative things. And the next one will be coming up in November. So we're continuing the second version already. So I mean, it's been a success. So I think those are the things that we're really taking away. We're not just focusing on diplomatic. We're focusing on business.
Right.
We're looking at cultural relations. So it's the whole gambit.
Education is a big ticket item here as well.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm looking at the communication between, what can actually happen, how certain things can be learned. The Estonian example is a huge one in terms of, number one, digitalization and how that has been used throughout an education system to ensure that, you maximize on particular potentials. How have you seen that knowledge and information can be shared on this side of the pond?
Well, I think we're starting at the root level. So we're working on how to maybe innovate with the curriculum. So in Estonia, the curriculum is based that the teacher is given a guidelines as to the curriculum, and the teacher decides themselves how is the best way for the students to pick up the curriculum. Some teachers use very technological means and ways. Others use a hybrid, using different, and some are still the traditional way. So I mean, we are trying to help the ministry here give that opportunity to the teachers, because the students are like sponges. Whatever you give them, they normally absorb it.
Yeah.
So it's up to the teachers to be able to deliver it in a way that those sponges really take it all up and understand it. So we're trying to share our experiences in this area, working with Embu University in updating the curriculum that's being taught to teachers in university level. And I think that's one of the key areas. And in terms of technology, we have something that's called e-school. And I think the main thing that can benefit, especially on the continent, is just the fact that you're indicating immediately to the parents whether the child is at school that day. So we did in Ghana, they did, one of the companies did a test, and the participation of students in class rose 25% because the parents were being informed immediately whether the child was at school that day or not having to wait till the end of the semester or the half year. But I mean, in addition to that, I mean, I get all of my children wherever I am. I know what they learned that day, what their homework is, whether they were in school, what their marks are. So I mean, it's a way of the school, the teachers, and the parents, and of course the student, because at the end of the day, the data belongs to the student. So
how does this technology work? I'm interested.
Well, it's based on our entire e-governance system. So at birth, you're given a number, and everyone has that number, and that follows you through all of your life. I mean, even at the hospital, you can't put the name until you're given that number, and then you get home and you get an email saying, or a message saying, now you can give your child a number. A name. Here is their number. This is what it's linked to. Immediately, you'll get your the benefits will be indicated to you that you get for this, and then of course that same number you use to go to school. So you'll get a message saying, now it's time to register your child. These are the schools that are in your area. Please select the top 2 or the top 3. I'm not sure. Each local government is different. And then that number follows you through the education. But of course, since the child is a minor, their number is always attached to the parent's number. So the parents will receive all that information until the student becomes a major, and then the student chooses themselves, or the child chooses whether they share with their parents or not. And that's it's the interoperability system. So we don't have a central lake of data. It's every database is kept in the ministry or in whichever the institution is, and we share it on a safe, secure line, and that's how they share the information.
At what age do you introduce your students to the digital world?
Already in kindergarten. So there's a very simple coding starting already in kindergarten. There's special games and things like that. In terms of using technology, it depends on the school. So my son's school didn't use any sort of internet or electronic means to present work. But my daughter now, going into 5th class or 5th grade, she was sending her works via the internet through the same e-school program. So I mean, it's really up to the school to decide which way they want to go. But the introduction is done early. But the thing is, people think that we have everything is e-school in Estonia. Actually, it's very limited, the e-component. You're being taught how to use it, but you're not living the whole day in your telephone, because that's the problem, is too much time being spent in the telephones.
I want to ask a question linked to technology still, just following up on what CT said. And you mentioned you were an election observer in 2007 right here in Kenya under EU. I happen to understand that in Estonia you can vote from the comfort of your home, where you cast ballots electronically, and it's quite convenient for citizens to exercise their democratic right.
Yes.
We're just from an election in 2022 where, if I'm not wrong, I think if it's not majority, maybe most of the registered voters did not turn up to cast their ballots. Now, having been an observer under EU, seeing the electoral process in Kenya, what tidbits could we borrow from Estonia to ensure that, number one, the trust component in our elections is there for all to see, and equally embracing technology? Because at the end of the day, we've really tried to revolutionize how we vote, how we cast the ballots, but it's still pen and paper, So talk to us about that.
Well, I mean, the i-voting, we have i-voting because it's internet. E-voting is also, if you go to there's a machine, there's a computer, and you vote in the station with a computer. But that's also very difficult. I mean, it's very easy to manipulate when you have the computers on site. But what I've understood in Kenya is that your ID is a part of your identity. I mean, and there's been some questions that have been raised linked to that ID card, because I understand you have to have an ID card to vote.
Yes.
In Estonia, your identity is your number. Mine is 37805150074. And I use it for, again, as I mentioned, everything. And if I go voting, I can even tell them that number and just have a piece of legal photo identity. It doesn't have to be my ID. It can be my driver's license. It can be my some other card that I might have from somewhere. We don't have that many cards anymore, but I don't have to have I don't have to have that specific ID. So if it expires and I update it, it's not like nothing changes. It's that number that stays the same. So I mean, I think the simplicity of the process is that I don't even have to register as a voter, because it's already in the national registry. They already know it's already updated. Who the deaths are immediately updated, the births are immediately updated. So I mean, it's really the simpler your system, the more efficient it is, and at the end of the day, the e-voting is the biggest trust that the citizen can give to its government. So normally it's really the last step after you've done the other steps prior to it, of creating an e-government system where the government already has access to your data.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I own all my data, not the government, and that's the key. So there's a similar like a log where I can see who accesses my account. And there was a police officer who checked someone's information for another friend, and it was logged, and that police officer was fired for that. Because
for checking?
Yes, because you don't have the rights to access that information.
And it's followed?
It's very clear, black and white.
Okay, Balozi, help us out here. So sometimes you can only see the benefit of something when you understand it. And for you to see that if you go from one step to the next, and even in this sharing of knowledge, communication of how things have worked, and see how others can then adopt them, because development begets development, does it not? That when you see it working in one area, then you can actually say, then I can understand that it can actually work here, and I can see how I can adapt that thing to my situation and make it work. So just walk us through a little bit when we talk about digitalization of an entire economy, because essentially that's what Estonia has done. Everything is digitalized. I mean, I believe the numbers that the president gave us when she sat where you sit right now is 99.8%, something to that effect. It was very little that was, and she said something about, well, in the next few years or in the next couple of months, that we would then be able to be looking at almost, 100%. How does that work? How does that look like? What are we talking about? You wake up in the morning and essentially everything you do then is in a system that is interdependent. Can you walk us through that a little bit?
It's pretty much 100%. The reason it's not 100% is for one reason. Is because when you get married and you get divorced, you're allowed to apply for it electronically. But they ask you, are you sure? And for this, you have to do it in live, because we don't want people one day married, one day divorced. So technically, we can make it. We can digitalize it, but we don't want marriage and divorce to be something like an everyday thing. We want it to still carry some value, and that's why we're at 99.8 or 99.9%. But it's really, our challenge was a lack of resources and the need to deliver services to the people. At the end of the day, we made the mistake in the beginning that we used it to simplify the work of the government. But e-government is supposed to be citizen-centric, which means you're supposed to make the life of the citizen easier.
Not government.
Not government. Because at the end of the day, government is delivering services, and through that, government's life is made easier. But you do the citizen approach. So we have the principle called, we have three components. One is the single electronic identity, that number that I mentioned, that's given to everyone. The second, and then, of course, how do you identify yourself, whether it's with your SIM card, whether it's with your ID card? There's also an app to identify yourself. Then there's the interoperability system, which I mentioned, that shares the data. And third is trust. So the trust, there has to be, the citizens have to use it. There has to be some sort of benefits, and they have to believe that, that the government is not going to use the data in a bad way. And once you have those in place, then it's other principles such as the once-only principle. I only give my data once. And then that data is accessible by other ministries if I request them to look at it. So, for example, if I've given my address, when I go to the hospital and they take my number, they will see my address already and my phone number. And they will see it also linked to my children. So they don't need to ask me again to fill in that big form. What's your address? What are your children's names? What are their parents? No, it comes up already in the system. The same applies to the school. I mean, it's not that you come out and everything's done for you electronically. It's the bureaucracy. It's if you want to create a company, we set the world record. I think it was 15 minutes to create a company. It's making it life easier for the citizens, making life easier for the companies, so they don't have to spend a day in the queue waiting to get that stamp. That's done directly. A lot of it is becoming now automated with AI. So, I mean, it's really making the life easier for the citizen, which makes the life easier for the government as well. So we don't have to stand in the queue any longer. I mean, there are some restrictions because there's a registration system. And some people are not used to taking a time slot. So they still choose to go and stand in the queue. And so, that's an option for you. But when I go to pick up my passport, I go and I register and I say, I want this slot to come and pick up my passport. And I wait maximum 5 minutes and I'm given my passport. So I don't have to...
I'm sorry?
I wait maximum 5 minutes and then I get my passport. So I don't need to stand in the queue because, I mean, time is money. I mean, you don't want your business people, you don't want your startups, you don't want your officials to be taking a day off work to go and do something that's very, should be simple.
Okay. let's look at that particular system whereby you can, because again, we're looking at something that's the right of every citizen to have a document that allows you go somewhere else, and you're claiming nationality of one nation. What has been put in place to allow somebody go stand in a counter? You've talked about the card that has all your information already, so you have the information,
yes,
and you're able to verify certain things by virtue of that,
yes,
information. So essentially, if you have the booklets and you have the machine and you have the individual standing in front of you, there shouldn't be much more that you would need to do. And we're talking about not a document, not a slip of paper, that the actual passport is printed as you stand before the counter. If you have a payment to make, you make it, you get your passport, you go home. Is that what we're saying?
No, because you apply for it in advance, and then the passport is printed, and they don't invite you to come until they know that they have the passport.
Yeah.
And that they can give it to you in 5 minutes, because you just have to prove that it's you, and you give your signature and you leave. There's no other process needed when you get to the office, because you've already sent in all your information, and since it's in the database already, they can confirm in the database, and we also have e-signature. I forgot to mention that, and that is legal tender. So when I do my application online, it's a legal document. And even, for example, our government, you cannot, if you are a supplier to the government, you cannot issue a paper invoice. It has to be an electronic invoice. Otherwise, they will not accept it.
I'm seated here wondering if we've ever sent our leaders to benchmark in Estonia. Because
no, they have come.
They have come.
Yes, and don't get me wrong, you guys are doing very well. You have all kinds of systems. For example, your biggest hospitals all have CRM systems, and they are digitalizing what they're doing with the client data. But they just don't speak to each other because that system hasn't been put into place. And the data exists in many of the ministries, and one of the things that we're doing with the ICT ministry as we speak is we're piloting different interoperability systems to see how the data can be shared. So we're discussing at the moment which are the areas that they would like to try to see what the solution might be. So the government's very clearly working on this, and they're very understanding of it. The president's put the goal of the services and digitalizing everything. So I think you're going really in the right direction. But I think also one of the challenges is the citizens themselves. They are. I went to a neighboring country, met with a foreign minister, and he said that we like to stand in queues because that's how we get the village news. So you cannot take the Estonian situation or the solution and just drop it into Kenya. It doesn't work that way.
No. So principles, but the principle of the applicability of the application of principle here is what we are saying can actually be the same.
Yes. The government is working on that. They're working on a single identity. They're looking into interoperability as we speak. So they're really looking at those steps.
The Estonian ambassador to Kenya is here with us, Daniel Erik Schaer, and we've been talking about a number of things, lessons that Kenya can learn from Estonia's economic freedom. Coming in from CT, you had a question, or was it just one of you? Before I ask mine.
Well, before I go to the wife-carrying tradition, I wanted to ask, does the digitalization cover land as well? Land transactions? Is it also at 100%?
Yes, so the entire country has been mapped, and every single plot is digitalized with a separate number. And so all of the transactions are immediately also, when you go to the notary automatically puts it into the e-register. And the same for companies. And you can, as a Kenyan citizen, as a citizen of the world, you can access our company e-registry, and you will know who's the owner of the company. There will be their last income statements or all of their financial statements will be available, and you'll see again who's the owner, who's the beneficiary, what area they work in.
Financial statements will be available to the public.
Yes.
Government spending. Government spending?
Yes.
We're talking about government spending so that everybody knows how much was spent, when it was spent, what it was used for. Okay. And then you're able to make a connect between that money that was spent, and you can actually see what government said they've spent the money on, and you can see it.
Yes,
of
but
course.
Also private enterprises, companies, you will know name of company, who owns it, what they do, how much money they make.
How much money they declared that they've made.
They've declared they have made.
Because I mean, we don't want to say that that we don't have challenges in Estonia and things like that. I mean, it just makes it more transparent, and because you have an auditor that has to put their stamp of approval on that, and there's a requirement to make your declaration. But again, if you're in a bankruptcy area, you might not have made your statement yet. If you're going into receivership, it might be delayed. So I mean, there is some challenges. It's not the silver bullet, but it does go towards transparency.
Essentially, there's a lot of information that is available.
Yes.
Now, this thing about wife carrying that Jess is all about, why is this a thing in Estonia?
Well, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it started in Finland. So our brothers and sisters to the north, and it was that you would. It's basically you carry your wife and you run around the course, and then you get the weight of your wife in beer was the prize. And so the Estonians, as we've always been good in athletics, especially in the decathlon, for example. So where it's a race course where you need somebody who's able to run, strength, all of these areas. So we were able to become world champion for several years. So it was, and then that sort of seemed to be one of these areas that caught the media's attention. Another one is called geeking, which is a big swing. And it's, can you make a 360-degree swing? And the world champion depended on what was the height of the swing, how many meters. And I think it was well over 10 meters.
What are you swinging exactly?
You have a big swing, and you have to do a full circle, 360 degrees. And depending on the length of your swing. Are you
sitting on that swing?
Yes, swing. You're standing and you do a 360-degree turn. So, we have a swinging tradition in Estonia that goes way back, where you would have the whole family on a big wooden swing. And it would go back and forth. And so naturally from that we went to geeking.
Yes. Are you required to provide proof that the lady is actually your wife?
In order to get the beer.
I don't think you do. It has to be a female. But they used to carry on the piggyback and things like that. But the Estonians created a more efficient way of carrying them, and I think that also contributed to the wins. But
what is the efficient way of carrying your wife?
The wife puts the legs over the shoulders, like hangs onto your back, so her head is down, holding you in the back, so the bodies fit together. Because otherwise, if you're carrying on the back, then the weight goes back. Because you also have to run through water. There's a water catch as well. Yes,
and then there's always a risk of dropping your wife. That may not augur very well for you.
If you drop it, do you get the beer?
No.
You might get something else. A bollocking.
Bollocking from
There's something I want to understand. The education system and studying at the university.
Yes.
Does Estonia have an unemployment problem?
No, we have almost full employment, and we have some lack of employment in some areas, for sure. The challenges of what we have in the education system is that the traditional system in some ways doesn't get you ready for the job. So one of the solutions that we have all of these startup. We have the most startups. Most unicorns, which means companies valued more than $1 billion US. We have the most companies per capita. So it goes somewhere from 11 to 12 of these unicorns. So TransferWise, which is called Wise now, Skype. You would probably know Bolt, who's quite active here, is Estonian. So these owners of these companies put their money together and they funded a coding school. And the coding school, you go to there after you've done your studies. They target, I think, somewhere from, somewhere in the 20s to the early 30s. And you come out of there with a job, not a diploma. So, I mean, it's the changing of the education system at that level is even the universities are changing, offering micro credits, micro courses for those who have already done who have already done their full education to get some extra skills to get a different job. So now it's really important that you learn the skills quickly to go into a different sector.
So when you say you have a job, when you come from that particular training in coding, what exactly does that mean?
It means that you become a programmer for an Estonian ICT company or something of these lines. So I mean, since the companies are of course they have their own interest here because they're looking for more programmers.
Yes.
That's one of the difficult areas for us for programming. So one of the things we did with Kenya, with Strathmore University, is we took 20 young IT experts from the university, and they came to Estonia for a 4-month internship. And the goal was for them to experience what the universities are teaching, seeing what the Estonian companies are doing. And if I'm not mistaken, 3 of them are actually working from Kenya, programming for an Estonian company. Because as everything is digital, you can do your job from home. You don't have to migrate. You're able to do it from your own home. And I think 2 or 3 of them also stayed to study in the master's level in Estonia, to continue to hone their skills. So the goal of that, again, is getting that experience, maybe working for a couple of years and then coming back and contributing to your own ecosystem here in Kenya.
Does the university system or the college system have an incubation process where one can actually harness an idea, build it up, get to a point where it's actually a business?
Yes. So most of the universities have their incubators and their innovation parks and all of that. So we work very closely. For us, the public-private partnership has always been important. So all of our e-government has been built up by Estonian companies. In the same way, we work with the universities. So the universities work with the companies. They create the companies. So all of this, the ecosystem is so close, and everybody is working together. Because otherwise, that's the whole point of the education system, is to create people who will fill jobs or who will create jobs. I was at a conference I think it was in Dubai, and they said the future of the university is not to create job takers, but to create job makers. And I think that's one of the areas that we're going towards in Estonia.
Interesting question here, and two-pronged. First of all, I understand you got your independence in 1991.
We restored our independence. The independence was in 1918, so we were occupied by the Soviet Union for that after the Second World War.
Oh, okay, so you restored, 33 years or so since you restored independence. One might ask, because in Kenya we usually compare with the tiger, is it the tiger giants, the likes of Singapore, the tiger nations. Yeah, there was a time when we were way above them in terms of GDP and whatnot, but right now they're above us. So when it comes to Estonia, since 1991, I'd be curious in terms of your areas of focus. In Kenya, we've heard of the Big Four agenda, manufacturing, agriculture, whatnot. Why your areas of focus? Currently, we have the Better program in order to actually see the progress you've made within those 30 or so years. Equally, number 2, the trade balance between Kenya and Estonia. Do we export? Do you import? Well, what's the prized commodity? Yeah.
Yes, thank you for those questions. I mean, initially, again, we started very much linked to this e-government concept. So one of the first steps was to put internet into all the schools. But it wasn't only for the students; it was also to give digital skills to not only the other generation adults, but also for the elderly, because we have to bring everybody along. So the goal was to diversify into sectors that we have a competitive advantage. Okay. And through this process, we were able to build up our service sector, and especially in IT. So I think the IT exports are the fastest growing export in Estonia as we speak. And then we were looking at, we don't have enough people to do sort of big production, big industry. So we are looking at adding high value. So, for example, Nokia has a factory in Estonia. ABB from the Nordics has a factory in Estonia. So it was really those, the high value added type of sectors is what we did in that sector. So it was we've really gone into a service area. Our banks are also very strong in the region with our neighbors. So, it was really to target those skills that we knew. So our agriculture reduced the sector because it became more efficient, one, and two, because we didn't have the competitive advantage that, for example, our neighbors did. Okay. So we really had to focus on what we did best, and the main thing was an open, liberal, free economy. And that was the transparent, simple, making the life for innovation and the companies the easiest and the most efficient possible.
Okay. What was difficult about the process? Because a lot of times you start something, whether you're doing it on a person level or you're looking at it from a national outlook level. But if you look at history, what was difficult about getting from the point where, okay, let's even look at regaining of independence,
yes,
until the point whereby we're looking at almost 100% digitalization of an economy that allows you to do things in a transparent and accountable manner? What was difficult through the lines?
Well, I think it's one side you have the stigma that stays with you. I think unfortunately Africa has the same stigma as we had. We were seen as Eastern European, and we're who knows exactly
what they're doing over there.
What they're doing, and is it is there corruption? Is there things? And if you haven't even been there, you haven't been to those areas. How can you start commenting on these things? And I think that was one of the challenges. And of course, the beginning it was a little bit. Wild West. Because everybody had their interests, and there was a period where we also had a change of currency. We were during the occupation period. We had, of course, the ruble, and then we implemented our own currency. So, of course, inflation was hyper, and people were trying to get money from whichever business option they could find. So, I think it was really how to bring everybody into the process. And again, that goes back to what are the benefits that the citizen will receive from an open, liberal economy. And of course, there will be those who will lose, those who are used to being in a fixed, planned economy might have difficulties in adjusting to the free market principles. So we had to also figure out how to bring them along.
Mm-hmm. Is it the brick and mortar, or is it goodwill?
Of course, the Estonian people. We restored our independence. We regained it. So that time, everybody wanted to do their best, and everybody was anxious to be a part of the process. And I think it's similar to here in Kenya. When I go and meet with people in the business sector, in the startup sector, everybody's anxious to do things. They're ready to go. And I think that the government is currently putting in place a system for them to do their job in a more efficient way. I truly believe it, because the basis of our system is the companies, especially the medium-sized companies, because they are the ones who create the jobs. They are the ones who create the economy, and making that life easier for them has been sort of the key that we've been following in Estonia.
Still focusing on the citizenry. I don't know if you've noticed this about Kenya, but politics and religion sort of goes hand in hand. That politicians will definitely try and target the pulpits in order to take advantage of the masses that are gathered. They won't have to pay to gather people. I sort of understand that you rank highly amongst various issues, including being the world's least religious country globally. So I'd be interested in your take in terms of how spirituality and politics, is there any link from where you come from? Can you draw any comparisons with what we have right here in the country? Since you're ranked lowly in terms of religion, does spirituality hold relevance when it comes to politics, maybe. Yeah.
I'm not sure if it links so much to politics, but to policies. So for us, the forest. We were pagans until the German knights brought Christianity in the 14th, 15th century to Estonia. And that influence still plays a role until today. So for us, the forest is a place that we go to when we want to relax from our everyday life. We go into the greenery, we go into the bogs, we go and swim in the bog lakes. And of course, what I mentioned before, the sauna, that is really, in some ways, has been also our church. We go there with the family. It was a place where you gave birth because it was the cleanest place. I'm talking 200 years ago. It was the cleanest place to do these things. And that is, the spirituality comes from there. And I think our changing policies on climate, on green topics are due to this fact that we want to preserve our forests. We want them to be there for the children because we know that this is an important place for us. Okay. At the same time, the timber industry is also a big player in our economy, since we have 50% of the country is covered by forests. Also, the peat moss. We are one of the largest producers in the world of peat. So it's how do you keep that balance between these areas? And at the end of the day, it's more a question of, are we practicing? And a lot of the people in Estonia do have some, as you mentioned, spiritual beliefs, and they have the background. But because during the Soviet period, it was illegal to practice religion. The churches were all closed and everything. So there is, all of these stories of how they had churches underground and how, the hiding the flag, so all of this is part of the spirituality and the people of Estonia, wanting to be free. So I think that's all interlinked to where we have achieved what we have achieved now.
Given the number of times Estonia has been colonized, Germans, Swedes, Russia, Soviet Union, there must be an Estonian diaspora. How big is this diaspora?
Yes, it's quite large. I'm actually from that diaspora. I'm born in Canada. My grandparents escaped in 1944 before the Soviet occupation. They went through the deported people's camps in Germany. And so I think the numbers that we're at is about 100,000, which for Estonia, 1.3 million is quite large. Canada and the US are probably the largest ones. And of course, most recently, it's become Finland. So Finland, having not been occupied, their economy grew during that period. And so a lot of workers, a lot of people have been going to work also in Finland. So we have a big diaspora also in Finland. But Canada, I think it's somewhere around 30,000, and Toronto being one of the centers where I'm from.
Okay.
Just quick, is immigration a big deal in Estonia as it is in Europe?
Again, Estonia has gone a little bit on the as far as you can get away from the main areas. We're right on the border with Russia. We're up north, so maybe the weather and the things like that are not particularly the best. But we do have quite a large diaspora of actually Africans. A lot of coming to study in our universities, especially in the IT sector, and there are some also workers coming. But we also have workers coming from Ukraine, where our friends are in a very difficult situation at the moment, and they are coming to help us, because again the jobs are there, and we are looking for those options. So also again, highly qualified people are also the other area that we're looking at. So the pressures we have. Also, 1/3 of our population is ethnic Russians who were brought during the Soviet period. So we have already gone through our illegal immigration period. So we are supporting our friends in the south and trying to find solutions. And that's why I think this program that we did with Strathmore, with the Digital Explorers, again, the cliche of teaching how to fish rather than giving the fish. even though it's very cliche, but I truly believe in it, because at the end of the day, no one wants to leave their home. They want to be successful in their home and be able to live with their family and friends. So, I mean, that's the key.
Yeah. Indeed, even as we wind down this conversation, Balozi, and you've talked about, where Estonia has come from. We're looking at an exchange of ideas and best practice with Kenya, and the examples that you've given of the education exchange and all of this. If you were to say, what would you want to see, looking into the future, of solidified relationship going into it in the future, what would you want to see?
Well, I think first of all, we're also here to learn from Kenya. So we know that Kenya is a very big leader in the green and the climate area, and has taken the lead in Africa. We see the potential of the continent. So what we're looking at, our plans is to make partnerships, because our companies are not all that large, so they're not going to come here by themselves. They're looking to partner with local companies, whether it's to do joint ventures here in Kenya or in the region. They're very open to that. So that's something that I'm really focusing on. And I think that in international organizations, we share the same beliefs. We believe in the UN Charter. We believe in the importance of sovereignty and borders. So I think that we have that potential to cooperate at all levels. And I see Kenya as being a door to Africa for Estonia, and I hope that Estonia can be a door to Kenya for the European Union.
Ambassador Daniel Erik Schaer, the Estonian ambassador to Kenya, has been our guest this hour. Thank you very much for this insight sharing with us, and it's good to see that this kind of partnerships continue and how lessons of exchange can be working for both countries. Thank you very much for being part of Kenya's biggest conversation this morning, and we look forward to other conversations in the future. Asante sana.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.